Good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the first of our value management roundtables. I'm Noelia Gomez Rivero, Director of the Research Team, and I want to thank this amazing audience for being here today. We have more than 200 people online. Sorry. Before we get started, I want to run you through a few things. First, the purpose of the Value Search Team Roundtable is to build a community of value managers and sales professionals to share and discuss value selling and value management ideas and experiences. Second, in this first roundtable, we have 7 pioneers and current top leaders in value management in EMEA, which is one of the most complex and culturally diverse environments in the software industry. And last, they will be talking on their behalf, not on behalf of their current employers or past employers. And just to finish with housekeeping, you are all muted. You may submit your questions through the Q&A section in Zoom, or alternatively, you can do it through the comment section in LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Jose Catala, who is our CEO, and we'll have a few words about our panelists. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you very much for attending this first roundtable. So, after more than 20 years of value management in the software industry, I think this is the time to create a real community of professional value managers now. So professional value management means product agnostic, software agnostic. It means value managers with a broad strategic vision, but also adaptive and flexible and pragmatic in their approach to maximize the value that we create for customers, no matter for which company we work or which tool we use for that purpose. So each of these panelists in this first roundtable have more than 15 continued years in this profession and have faced the most diverse challenges and in leading software companies in a, let's say, very tough, business context. So we know and respect each other, and we recognize that there is a lot to learn from each other. So this is the objective of these roundtables, series. Ogden has championed complex value realization programs worldwide, uncovering successful business outcomes from cloud services. Chris has guided large global customers through massive transformational journeys based on value-based recommendation with a focus on enduring change and tangible results. And Fabrizio is an exceptional leader and team builder with abilities that have imparted colleagues and customers to successful demands. Facing very, very difficult demands and transformation challenges too. And Cedar has devoted years to building scalable value management functions, in different companies and integrating the value through the entire customer journey. Frank has helped democratize, let's put it like this, the value management approach with a widely adopted transformative, let's call Alpha Value Canvas, which is a strong, powerful visual tool that is used in Google Value Advisory Team, and now it's been adopted by the Value Search Team as well. And Mark is an accomplished value management leader, very recognized everywhere, with a very rich background, driving major transformation and generating exceptional value for his customers for decades. Unfortunately, Kevin will not participate today, and we look forward to his participation in a future event. So a very warm welcome to all these colleagues, all my gratitude. And now I leave you with Peter Kajewski, is our director at the Value Search Team, who will be the moderator for this first roundtable. Thank you, Peter.
You're on mute.
We unmute.
Yeah, I cannot see Peter here. Well,
We don't hear you, Peter.
All right.
Yeah, now yes.
All right,
Good.
perfect.
Well,
So we really hit the nerve seems here. So many people have registered to participate, but also every single person who we invited showed interest to come up. So we are going to have to do this a bit in a more structured way, even though with every single person here, and I'm not just glittering, I'm really saying my personal experience, we could have run a session of 1.5 hours. And to be honest, in my 12 years of value management experience, these 2 weeks when I was interviewing one-on-one with the people was probably the most learning thing I have ever had. So what we are going to do to handle this restriction with so much knowledge in one place to get most, we're going to start with the worst practice of webinars, which is I'm going to kind of give up the summary, what we kind of come up as a sort of a summary of what are the trends there, but then we're going to have the participants highlight one of the parts in the first part, everybody for 3 minutes, one to illuminate one of the aspects of the trends of value management. Then we're going to have a second round in the same order when people are going to say some more things, either connecting to what the other people said or different topics. And then we are going to switch to the more free form of Q&A with audience questions handled by Noelia. So I'd like to have Teresa to show the slide, another worst practice, but promise only one slide, about what are the trends in value management. And we're seeing it, right? So the first trend very much is value management is still growing. Value management is growing, covering small companies. When I started, there was like really a few companies doing it, and value management, and we can see, and then the value management is also moving to other industries, which is a topic for a different forum we're going to have. What after value management? One of the things is you can do value management outside of software. Within the core value management, if you will, the trend absolutely everybody mentioned, everybody's strongly involved with that, is the post-sale involvement. Of course, now with the cycle, moving to SaaS, moving to this flowing between every pre-sale activity is setting up the post-sale experience, which is setting up the renewals and the new things with the changes in the industry. Work after the sale, work on the value realization, work on advising customers how to get more value out of the software has really, after many years of promise, come to the fore of value management as a second trend. The third trend is actually even wider expansion. So it's not the value management people being this sort of in the ivory tower where they do their magic with a business case, financial numbers, and then maybe some strategy there, but they are infusing the whole organization with the impact. So value management is included in strategy about accounts, is included trying to do more on the influencing implementation plans from the value perspective, also getting even involved more with product management. And that, of course, leads to the fourth trend, which is the type of people that you want for value management, the type of skills you want, and how you execute value management activities is changing. On one hand, you need people with more things like, say, design thinking, say about data analytics deep, say product management, stakeholder management. You also need different ways to work, more of teamwork. Traditionally, value management has consisted of engagements where very much one-on-one, one practitioner handles one project, but we are seeing more and more teamwork. And then at the same time, we have also a bit of the tools we're going to speak, which is the last point. AI is coming. Everybody's talking about AI. Certainly value management is not going to be the least affected function or work or career by value management. Is it going to be for better, for worse, to be seen? But we are also going to cover this. So now these are the trends. And within those, we are going to start the topic. But first, not to be too triumphalistic, we are going to start with Fabrizio and a bit of reality check about some of the limits of what is value management. And Fabrizio has a first-hand experience who recently moved to the other side, on the sales leadership side. So I would like to ask him to give a bit the view from the other side about what is and what is not helping with value management.
Thank you, Peter. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So first, I want to thank you, Peter, Jose, Noelia, and Teresa for organizing this, which is absolutely valuable, and for hosting me and inviting me, despite the fact that I move beyond the fence, as you said. So what happened? Around 3 months ago, I have been requested to move into the CEO for EMEA South. So I had to leave my family, my value management family. There were some tears, but I did it. I think it was a great business opportunity. And yeah, I saw a different world. I saw from a different perspective. I still love very much value management, but the business took a different view. And what happened 1 week after is that the business leader, so the SVP for the region, left the organization. So I say, oof. And the president asked me to lead the region for 3 months, for 1 quarter. So it was a shocking therapy first, but a great learning experience. But I saw the world from a different perspective. From the day after, for me, priority number 1 was sales. So you mentioned, Peter, the terminology of scale. I love the team. I love value management, but we still represent a minority within an organization. So the first topic for me was, how can I make sure that all the skills, the goodness that is coming from value management is propagated across marketing, the inside sales, the pre-sales, and the sales, that they need to deeply understand what is value and how to approach prospect and customers with value. Point number 1. Point number 2, the priority became this quarter, next quarter. That's it, full stop. Every week, every day, I was looking at the deal, knowing exactly the number of deals that were part of my region, and forecasting the closing plan and executing on the closing plan, and having accuracy on the way we forecasted every week. That was my priority for 3 months. And then I was trying to raise the eyes and go for rolling quarter and pipeline generation. And pipeline generation has different engine. Is marketing, is partners, ecosystem, is inside sales, is also sales. They need to produce pipeline. If you see these 2 pillars, when you see, for example, the pipeline generation and the last 2 quarters, value management is in between. We have a lovely job and we see the entire value life cycle, but we are not in the priority of our business leaders because somehow it's just a corner of the organization. So we need to think differently. We need to really be curious about the entire sales cycle, what is in the priority of the business to remain and become even more relevant. I don't know if I stayed in 3 minutes, but that would be my take in the last 3 months. I want to remain part of alumni. As I said, there were tears when I left the team, not just from me, and I think it will be a piece of my heart forever. Back to you, Peter.
Thanks. So part of that is right, not just to stay in the corner, but be in many different parts which are touching different people. So Ognan, we are colleagues from Oracle, and actually we are Macedonians. We have 2 out of 7 people in the panel are from a country of 2 million people. So that's even higher density than people from SAP or Oracle background on this call. So
exactly.
So Ognan, a few things if you can share exactly about going outside of the value management in narrow sense, how your team yourself is getting involved in different aspects, and also including an expansion, also a few words around the value realization, the post-sale involvement and activities.
Which is really, value realization is my baby. So I'll get to that in a second. But first of all, this was exciting, guys. I mean, it's almost feels like a super group is forming, that we're gonna jam on stage and we have this wonderful audience in front of us. It's the energy is unbelievable. So zdravo na site, Ognan Borozanov, during the day I work for Oracle. So to answer your question, Petar, what's we can do with value management and further improve our credibility in the companies. We first need to look at what makes us so credible internally. And I think these are the core competencies that we bring. I mean, on one hand side, we're for the customer, we provide a single entry point to almost all the capabilities that our products and services can offer, and even our partners can offer. Even more importantly, we are listeners. Okay, we are ear to the ground. We're there to listen to the customers and understand, learn, and also play back the learnings that we get from them. And of course, then we have bring the capability to tie it all together, bringing all this complex stuff into simple messages. So that brings credibility, to the VPs, SVPs, and business leaders internally as well. So then the question is, how can we increase the impact? Well, we a little bit go where the big problems are. So internally, I mean, some of the big problems are, as in any organization, is how can we focus our attention to really the major accounts that really bring the biggest value internally for whoever pays my paycheck. And there it's not just doing your piece over the business case, but it's actually taking a step back and looking at how can we shape the whole engagement plan? Are we addressing the right business issues there? And then almost like even landing the first discussions, let alone landing the first deals there. So that's one of the things. Basically, we supported the major accounts program that we rolled out in certain parts of our organization. Second to that, it's about being almost like a guinea pig for some new ways or new strategic directions for the company. As any other company, Oracle is also moving to the industry skill set forming for everyone in the company, and we were one of the first trial guinea pigs for that. Smaller team, can we have a team that actually can fully align not just on products but on industry, speak the customer language, have the right references, points of views, even recommendations on how to implement certain stuff, because you have obviously the industry knowledge. And then last but not least, it brings to the customers. So how can we create value, additional value for customers? It's about value realization. So right now we have the luxury really of customers revisiting us, 2-3 months after they sign the contract and saying, "Hey, we really have pressure now from the board to really set up not just the program, but also the value metrics on how the program should progress quarter on quarter. And we really need to do that because our bonuses depend on that. So can you help us do that?" And it's a great place to be because, we live and breathe now with a customer. We didn't just help them in the beginning, but we are creating with them the plan to, extract the business value that was promised. And of course, that also creates some assets that like references, success stories that we can also reuse, share with other customers, and also increases the credibility with our marketing function. So, I mean, I can go on and on, but I guess the time is up. So that's, a snippet of what I wanted to share with you.
Thanks. I'm sure it's going to be revisited by others as well. So one side is this sort of the strategic part, but the second part is the value practitioner. The second aspect is need to get more active, more hands-on. One typical thing is maybe design thinking, but sort of a different spectrum is quite interesting is say what Chris and his team is doing with using the deep business data to create credible cases. So Chris, maybe you can say some things about your experience at Coupa.
Yeah, Peter, thank you, and thank you to everyone. And I got to say, from what we've heard in the short time so far, so much of this resonates with what I'm seeing in our business and with the challenges that we're facing. We're all, attempting to achieve the same stuff. So this is a great forum. And I guess if I was to go back to when I started doing this 20 plus years ago, the background to it and the story was, how do we establish in the minds of a client, what's the value of doing business with us? What's the value of what we can offer them? What's the value of the solution? How are they going to get value through transforming using our technology? And that's still really the question. But I think anytime I rock up to a client and start talking about value, I'm often have exactly the same narrative as everyone else. I can, in a very short period of time, establish a benchmark figure for the value that my solution will bring to the client within, probably 1 decimal point, and they'll nod and say, yeah, that's the ballpark. So having that number is is useful. It kind of builds a little bit of credibility, but it's a bit ho-hum because everyone's got the same number. So the thing that we're doing in really putting some muscle behind is producing evidence to support these numbers, giving our clients confidence that we don't just have a number that's the same as everyone else's, but that we have a number and we have the underlying measurements and KPIs and drivers that mean that that number is real. And that, as Alton was mentioning, when we get into benefits realization, we can not just talk about whether or not they're achieving benefits, but we can show them real evidence of it. And what enables us to do that is the large pool of data, customer data, that we have access to. So the company I'm currently working for is Cooper. We do business spend management, or in a single tenant platform, all of our customer data is in that platform, and we're able to mine it to determine what good looks like. What does a top quartile KPI look like for the 20 or 21 different benchmarks that we measure and report every year? And where do our customers sit against that? We will ingest their data and compare it. So all of the invoices and POs for a client for the last year can be compared against our benchmark data. And we can go back to them and say, here's precisely what you can get by moving your business from your current state to a future state that equates to Cooper's best in class. And that is really powerful. Nobody else can do that for them. And I think this is the future. This is going to be the future bar for the success of value management. Producing that evidence, producing something that the client can't come back and say, yeah, you made those numbers up. That's a synthetic KPI. You got it from some research or from a survey. No, this is real. This is what our other customers are doing. And that's really, really powerful. So I think I'm probably at about 3 minutes. I can rattle on for a long time on this topic, but we'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Shreya, we've been discussing so far about what to change, of course, coming from big companies, from established functions. And of course, you work and you've been a leader in established value management functions, but you have also had quite an experience with starting up value functions, when in theory, right, it's ideal, right? It's a completely green field and you can do exactly according to your wishes. But then, of course, there's lots of real world constraints. So can you share some of your tips and experience?
Of course, I can. So thank you for inviting me, and it's a real privilege to participate in this panel along with all my distinguished peers. So like you said, Petar, I've had the fortunate experience of starting a value management function from scratch at 3 different companies. And I can tell you it's a journey, and you need to take all your fellow passengers on that journey. And there are multiple stages, right? The first stage is all about evangelizing value and what it really means to an organization. And it starts with understanding a few key questions, right? Who are the buyers that you're catering to, and what do they care about? What are the outcomes, and how are they measured against? How have we historically weaved a storyline that connects their objectives to the outcomes, to our solutions and capabilities, right? And once you develop an understanding of that, let's then develop an initial framework, right? A structure, a hypothesis, a storyline. And let's get that socialized with all the key stakeholders across pre-sales and post-sales cycle, right? And let's get that high-level buy-in. That's the first stage. The second stage is the rubber needs to hit the road somewhere. So we got to trial it out somewhere. There are 2 great examples. The most logical one is sales, right? Where you can try it out. The other one is customer success, right? Or the post-sales side of things, right? And so let's identify a team. One of the teams that makes a lot of sense to is large customers, enterprise customers, strategic accounts. Let's identify a few and let's work with them to reframe the conversations. Let's work with the prospects. And there are multiple engagement models, right? We can collaborate with the prospect. We can have conversations with the coach and champion. We can do design thinking workshops. So let's do that for a few accounts. And it's absolutely critical at that phase to include either sales leadership or customer success leadership so that they experience firsthand the impact we're adding, right? And the interactions we are having. And hopefully the results start proving themselves out. Maybe your win rates start to improve for those accounts. Maybe you're increasing velocity in those accounts. Maybe you're elevating the conversations in those accounts, right? And so that then creates initial momentum. And the next stage is then you grow the function. You start catering to other sales teams out there. You start catering to post-sales activity. And at that stage, it is super important, like everyone's mentioned, to embed value within the DNA of the full organization, right? What can we do with those customer stories? How can we market it in a better manner, right? How can we deploy or implement against outcomes? How can we put that value realization framework into the product itself, right? So let's start embedding it within the DNA of the organization, and the ball starts rolling even further. And then lastly, the last stage is about scaling, right? Scaling is, how do you enable the entire organization? How do you enable SEs to demo against value? How do you enable partners to talk the same language? And that's absolutely important. So I guess my time is up, but I would look at it as those stages. And then if you have the ingredients right, like Fab mentioned right up front, value starts to take a real strategic seat at the table.
Thanks. Mark, all these things to be done, all this great, and of course, the main resources, and with you are going to take 2 out of the 3 top-line resources that the value manager has. That's, of course, the people, and then there is technology. The tools traditionally has had a lot of focus, but has been ho-hum, just like sort of hygiene factor. But now the AI would be one of the game changers, and certainly you were one of the sort of most enthusiastic of the people on the calls about like, or enthusiastic, or rather seeing it as like causing larger changes. So both on the topic of changing skills that you hire, the different types of people that you hire now than before, and sort of the impact of AI, we would have some of your opinions.
Okay, thanks, Peter. In fact, my professional interests historically have been more around value management and on-demand business models. But given the amount of interest in AI right now, I felt I had to at least deal with that topic. And I know a few of the other panelists have mentioned it already. I should say up front, thank you to Jose for the invite. It is actually my birthday today, and it seems quite fitting, actually, given the amount of friends I have on the panel here, and indeed many of you on the call attending, that I should be here with you today. So good to see many of you. Okay, I actually lead a team at ServiceNow called Inspire Value, which I think kind of echoes a bit where I think the role is going, the value management role. So we ServiceNow, you can read up online what we do. We've just entered the Fortune 500. We've got a software platform that automates business processes and workflows, and it does it in a very elegant way. So we have this team called Inspire Value. We do 2 things. One is the traditional value management work, building business cases. The other is inspiring customers to do more with the platform than use our core products, because it's very configurable. So customers, we can work back from the customer's business problem and actually build a solution that perhaps is more innovative, first of, etc. So that's the Inspire Value function at ServiceNow. Now, what I think in terms of the role and how it's going to evolve in the future for all of us, because there's no single answer to this, but my perspective is firstly, more focus. I think it was Chris or one of the other panelists, or maybe you, Ognan, said about the value realization function. So definitely what we're seeing is more interested in that space. So, as software providers, many of us spend much of our time in the discovery phase, trying to help a sales motion. But what we're seeing is definitely demand from customer to spend at least as much time helping them with the realization of benefits. And we're doing a lot of work with them. At the moment at ServiceNow, we have a different function called customer outcomes. But what I'm seeing with them already is that we're joining together very early on when we're working with customers, so that the discovery work that my team does translates into a very elegant realization model. So I think in the future, those 2 things will come together much more. There'll be more robust tools. It could be that it's one role, but there's definitely 2 roles there that are going to continue to grow around the discovery of value and the realization of value. I think the other thing I wanted to mention was around the use of AI. What we're seeing today is a lot of use for quantitative analysis, interrogating data, coming up with hypotheses, etc. And I do think what we'll see in the future is more use of AI around the qualitative side of things. We're doing a lot of work with storytelling, trying to help customers understand and inspire them to use the platform and leverage the benefits from the platform through stories. We did test recently some stories that we've been working on using ChatGPT. And we were quite surprised. It wasn't perfect, but it was surprisingly good. So I would imagine looking forward in the future, that will be a foundation that we as practitioners might use to then refine in a qualitative sense. I'm running out of time, so I think the only other thing I wanted to say was about my optimism really for this function. I think the need for customers to discover value and to realize value isn't going away. I think traditional product, feature, and function selling in many industries is kind of falling to the side a little bit and being replaced through better tools and information being available online, for example. And therefore, the need for this service that we deliver as a community, the value management or inspirational value management function, will only go up over time. So I'm incredibly optimistic. And indeed, I've been doing much of this with many of you for many years, so I can only see it getting better over time. We can't hear you, Peter.
Thanks. So, and of course, and what you told me in the part, like you're also hiring a bit different people. You're looking at requirements management, project management, seniority, informal leadership in people now more than when it was just the value management.
Yeah, very quickly, as we're moving away from the more quantitative analysis and relying on tools to do that, increasingly in the field, we're hiring, I would call them people with more experience who are able to orchestrate projects, able to tell stories effectively and communicate well. And it's a slightly different profile. And I think that's, for the audience, is to fine tune your skills in storytelling, design thinking, strategic type services, do some training if that's where you need your help, because I think that's where the future, the skills are going to land in this field that I operate in.
Thanks. And then switching to Frank, and the third, as I would say, or maybe in some ways for all of us, the most important asset that we have in value management, which is the credibility and the ability, tightly linked to that, the ability to influence people. And certainly those of us who come from management consulting have had this shock. I certainly had it, that all of a sudden when they haven't seen your face for 3 months and so much part, it's much harder. You don't have the credibility they used to. You have to earn it in a different way. So Frank, your thoughts about the topic of influencing or credibility? Or...
Yeah, thanks, Peter. First, I must just add to what Mark said, that I'm so aligned with everything he said. And plus one on thank you, Jose, for this fantastic initiative, an opportunity to build this community, but also to say happy birthday, Mark. So happy.
Thank you.
Before even thinking about the future of value management, I would like to start with a key question that, by the way, I borrowed with pride to Shakib Budari, the ultimate Jedi Master for a large number of us. So he used to ask this question to the board. Let's ask this question for us. What is a value manager core competency? So most will answer, and in particular in the sales leadership team, that it's about building a sound and solid financial business case and to demonstrate to the customer why they should invest in our solution. And although this might be obvious for most of the decision practitioners in the audience here, the business case is only a means to an end. It's just a vehicle to navigate the customer organization and better understand the business. In my opinion, after 15 years as a value engineer, we do not only build solid financial analysis or value demonstrations that our customer will swallow like a pill with a bit of water. It's rather establishing our personal credibility to gain trust and influence the way they see the world, the way they think. The value our solution will bring is not about what it is or what it does. It's really about what it means to each and every one of them. It doesn't exist in isolation. It depends on each and every one of the decision maker. And most of the time, it's not just about rational arguments. So accessing the key decision makers engaging in discussions with these executives that will provide them with success stories that are inspirational, to reuse Mark's words. Industry relevant insight that might change their perspective is, at the end of the day, what make us really impactful. And eventually, if we are successful in establishing our credibility, we then earn the right to get a much better understanding of their own individual perspectives on their situation. And this is really at the core of our ability to influence their decision eventually. And by the way, this is usually made through questions like, why do something, why no, why with us, which are the three most important ones. So for me, a value engineer core competency is mostly about influencing and not that much about demonstrating. And I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna wrap up. It's for me leading the customer to draw their own conclusions, leveraging their experience, their belief, and the insights that we bring to the table. And I believe that we really have done a great job when the customer leave the meeting thinking, oh, today I had a great idea. I made myself a conviction for myself, and I reached this with these guys in front of me.
Thanks a lot. Now we get into the second round of the part of like further adding on the comments. And now, Fabrizio, if I may bring you to the distant past up until a few months ago, and some of the things that you would like to point out from the value management perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, and I was thinking to use these 3 minutes to sing a song, the Happy Birthday song to Mark, but probably it's not the scope of this panel, but I will do that later. No worries.
Many
let me
thanks.
rely on what everybody said here, which is the focus, I think, for me, when you become a leader in this type of function, which is the people. The people make the difference. We can work on the framework, we can work on the role, responsibilities, whatever, the enablement, but at the end of the day, the interpretation of the role is what makes the difference in terms of connection with our prospect, with our customers. So selecting the right people is absolutely key. And the key skills that we need in our people in value management is the leadership skills. Back to what Frank was saying, we do have a luxury. We do have a fantastic job. If you think about your organizations, there are not so many people in your organization that can see the customer transformation from where we see the idea of a change down the road into when they sign the contract, down the road when they implement the system, down the road when they change the processes and realize the value and they start the wheel again. There are not so many people. Many times they pass the baton one to the other, and we see that. But that comes with responsibility, because that means we see everything and we can be spread and thin. So how we can focus and how we can make the difference alongside this 3-4 year cycle is to empower our team with the leadership skills to understand the business deeply and enter where it can make the difference. So I think back to the points, Mark was mentioning these 2 roles of value discovery and the value realization. In my interpretation is slightly different. I believe that we need to be the face of a long-term value partnership. I think our customers, back to Frank, if we create relationship with our stakeholders and decision maker, I would prefer to have the same person that will stay there representing value during the implementation, reminding everyone that when they take a project decision, this is why they took that decision. This is the value that they need to consider in that project. And when they go live, the change management and the value realization comes with all the knowledge that we created and we onboarded during the discovery implementation. So the same person should stay there to continue that relationship, make sure that this project is success and start the snowball. And that will make every software vendor happy and every value manager happy when then you see success and you start and you have a credibility, long-term relationship, and you can capitalize in the future on that.
Ogren and I believe also when we discussed actually some things in your part have been exactly changing along the lines of what Fabrizio mentioned. Your comments on any of the topics?
Yeah, a couple of them. I mean, in no particular order, just to pick it up also from Fabrizio and I think also Frank. I mean, first of all, it's let's give credit to our teams. Not just to ourselves as leaders and individuals, but also to our teams. I mean, this is a tough job. So it's a tough job. It didn't exist, and we kind of created it over the years, and now it's at a turning point to really be a driving force behind the success, especially in the service and subscription economy. I mean, it requires, of course, the analytics, the strategy formulation that's clear, but it also requires the business acumen. I mean, tell the story to the customer and bring them on the journey, bring your internal stakeholders to the journey. It also, you need to deal with, in a commercial setting with sales and also all the dynamics of the quarter close and the egos and all the other stuff. You also need to be a great communicator, like the interpersonal skills. We are all having the different accents, different cultures here. It's difficult. I mean, you have the finance controller in Finland versus the marketing lady in Spain, and everywhere you go, you need to operate in all these levels, and the analysts on the floor and the C-suite as well. So you can't. It does require some genetic re-engineering to get there. But these are our people. These are the ones that got us here. So kudos to that. I guess then the question is, okay, what do we do to actually make more of it? So I guess the question is to keep on challenging ourselves. Are we challenging the customer enough? Are we actually pushing them to a higher level? To not just solve an immediate need, but actually take a step back and maybe even wait a little bit with decision, but make the right decision. Are we challenging our sales leaders? Not to narrow down the scope, but actually expand it for them down the line. Maybe we should do that. And the last, but what I think Mark was mentioning, are we scared from AI or generative AI, or is gonna make us actually the Jedis for the future? Because on one side of the medal, 90% of what we produce, even the great stories, can be to some extent replaced by a machine. But then, what do we do with the extra 10%? Are we taking the last mile to, innovate with the customer, actually speak their language, really get maybe understand their fear, show the empathy? A lot of great words out of time, but I think these are some of the things, can we challenge ourselves a bit more to be even better? Okay.
Thanks a lot. Now to Chris, and Chris, I know I've said everybody has, but actually I do have a question if you would like to others here. Is what I heard from you is about the, if I may say so, a bit more applied team approach to worked individual engagements beyond the standard apprenticeship, beyond the standard teaming up to share skills, but actually kind of a more, if I understood correctly, the more purposeful teamwork in the engagement. So maybe one of the things you would like to address in your time.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so much here, so much good stuff from everyone, and so much, so many directions that I could go with this. I guess the thing I see in clients in active pursuits is you're either moving forward with the pursuit in developing the relationship with the client, in maturing the opportunity, in moving it towards success, or you're moving backwards. There's no middle ground. You can't just sit on the fence. And in my many years of doing this, I've seen lots of scenarios where pursuit becomes single-threaded. There's one set of conversations going on. There's one narrative being developed, and you've got to be really lucky to win a deal on the basis of that type of engagement. So one of the things that my team brings is a range of different skills. We've got an offshore, we call it the Value Excellence Center, that does all of the heavy lifting around the numbers. My guys can do it, but we don't. We concentrate on engaging with the clients. And I have someone who's an ex-McKinsey consultant. I have someone who is an ex-senior operating person from a company, so the other side of the fence. I come from a strategic business consulting background. We've got a bunch of different people with different skill sets, and we find what it is that's really going to resonate for a particular client, and we build a narrative off the back of that. So, understanding the key drivers for the client, not just, and we've already talked about this, not just off a piece of paper or out of an RFP or out of what we can find in the press, but from an eyeball to eyeball conversation with senior members of the client. And then from that, we use our various consulting skills to build a narrative. And the numbers, as I said earlier, the numbers support that story, but they're not the end game. And I think we're all on board with that. So in terms of developing a team, I look for diversity. I look for diversity in skills. I look for diversity in culture. And I look for different points of view. I look for people who can challenge me. I don't want everyone just to be a mirror of me. So I think this is really exciting because in our organization, we're open to anyone. Anyone could come join my team and add value. If they've got the right mindset and they're curious and they're prepared to work hard, then I'll entertain them. So I think it's exciting, and I think it's going to move our industry into a much wider, much more diverse range of conversations with clients. So that's me on that topic. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. By the way, in this roundtable, we are kind of more focusing on the top line important customers. The scale, as has been mentioned already, is also a very important part to cover. We're going to cover and focus that more in future roundtables. Now to you, Sridhar.
Yeah, so again, I want to reiterate thanks to all the value practitioners out there, right? Over the years, value has gone from a non-existent function to a very important and often strategic weapon of an organization, right? And so I see this as a really good opportunity for value to almost be like the lingua franca, the language of the organization when it is representing itself to any constituent out there, be it a prospect, be it a customer, be it a partner. Right? And value can play a very important role, speaking about scaling, right from top of the funnel, right? Where marketing is speaking the value language, right? Be it in terms of campaigns or events or digital or account-based marketing or all the important initiatives in marketing. Let's talk value out here and let's position value, right? With the outside community. Then going on to the inside sales organization, are we using value in our prospecting efforts? Right? And then going on to sales, like we talked about, within the sales cycle as well, are we actually articulating products and solutions that can speak the value language and speak outcomes, speak strategic objectives, right? Then going on to the implementation side of things, can we deploy against those outcomes? And then going to post-sales, like a lot of my fellow peers talked about, right? Outcomes, our customers realizing them. Let's never forget partners out here. They need to be speaking the same language as us because they are the external face of us in some motions. And then last but not the least, this is a wonderful opportunity to go, and it kind of goes back to AI as well in some aspects, going from a sales-led motion to a product-led motion as well, where the product can automatically surface the value that customers are realizing, right? So, it presents wonderful opportunities for us across the funnel, across the entire life cycle, for value to become that new lingua franca of the organization. That's my point.
Thanks. Mark, do you understand that one of the things you really wanted to address is about the roles?
Yes, thanks, Peter. Yeah, coming back to the roles. So, and Chris, just listening to you talk about your excellence organization made me reflect how similar probably all of our organizations are, because we also have an excellence organization. And I suspect if we all compared, they'd look quite similar today. And I guess that just reflects the maturity and evolution of our industry. So that kind of makes sense. So today there are two roles. I know Fabrizio's point about ideally we'd have one. And being customer obsessed, doing the right thing for the customer, I definitely agree with that. From the customer's perspective, they want to be reassured from the very beginning that the people working with them to build the case are the people that are going to help them see that through and not disappear. I think today in most of our organizations, the realism there are two different roles is because typically the discovery people are non-billable and the outcomes people tend to be more billable. That shouldn't be an inhibitor to do the right thing for the customer. And I don't think it is. I think the other thing here is about, I'm working on an engagement at the moment. It's really big. It's going to take us 4 to 6 months to complete the discovery. And we will engage in a relationship with the customer that lasts as a minimum 4 to 5 years. So my team, who are expert in storytelling and strategic thinking and one set of skills, then would need to hand over to others who are more expert in project management, the data analytics, the scorecarding, the change management. And I think asking one person to do that over a several year period is probably a bit too much for the Swiss Army knife, asking them to do a lot of things. And then from their perspective, what do they want to do? What are they good at? So the team I have today loves coming to work because we enjoy helping customers. We love telling stories. We're proud to work for ServiceNow. We have a real strategic engagement. We're at C-level. It's a good experience doing that. And they're the people we're hiring and they love their job. It's a slightly different profile, I think, for someone that wants to be there leading a project, a different level of satisfaction, a different skill set. Both are equally important, but a bit different. So I would say that's perhaps, I think in some situations it could be one person. I think though on these large engagements with large enterprise accounts, it's probably going to stay 2 people for this foreseeable future. But who knows what the world will look like 10 years from now, depending on the tools we have, depending where generative AI goes, etc. But I just wanted to comment on that.
Thanks. And Frank, you're quite keen to take up the value realization topic, which of course connects all the time also to the topic of continuity and everything. Please.
Yeah, because I've heard, as everybody, that there is more and more interest for this value realization part, which is also explained by the change in business models, where we are going software as a service, etc. However, I cannot stop myself thinking. We have been talking about and trying on this value realization stream for years without that much success. And so listening to the great experienced people here, I was thinking, well, what is the value proposition as a value management? So first to the sales. As Fabrizio mentioned, once you are in sales, you are just focusing on closing this quarter, next quarter. So value realization studies, who cares? In the sales organization, it's okay to have some customer references. This has been mentioned. It's really useful. It's an asset, but they're not going to spend that much time in trying to position this value realization activity with the customer because it's not on the path of their closing. So that's for the internal part, because at the end of the day, we are still value sellers. Before being value engineers or managers, we are value sellers. We are selling. That's what makes us relevant for a sales organization. And then let's switch to the other stakeholder, the customers. My experience with value realization is that usually they don't care that much on measuring the value at the people who are driving the project. I have a great example in mind. I'm in the cloud business. And last time I discussed that with the customer, it was like, yeah, we have moved X workloads and Y terabytes of data on the cloud. That's great. And by the way, we have trained 2,500 people. Well, okay. So what are the impact? Well, each time we engage with customers on this, they don't have the time. And whenever we try to measure the business impact, then they start thinking, oh, it's not that much about your solution making this happen. It's about us, my leadership, my ideas. That there is this political issue about claiming for the value delivered by an initiative that is also at stake with value realization. And so to be a little bit more optimistic, there is one way out, maybe. I've been lucky enough to work before joining Google into a startup that was working on AI. And I'm seeing that as well at Google on every AI project. An AI solutions needs to measure the impact in order to be able to improve and continue to be supervised. It doesn't work in isolation. So and I think it has been suggested maybe by Chris, if we try to influence our product developer and solution developer and our customers when they are building this solution to embed the value measurement within the solution in order to monitor and improve the AI recommendation engines, then maybe we will just have to collect the fruits of this value measurement out of the solutions. That's what I wanted to add, Peter.
Thanks, Frank. One thing which came to me as a summary thing, I believe on the call, some of our colleagues occasionally are frustrated. Most of us have been probably, hey, we are among the smartest people on the call, and why are we not making more impact? This thing is happening. On the other side, what we heard from Fabrizio is also there are other people, hey, you are among the smarter people on the call, why are you not helping more? And I do believe now we had quite a few things as inputs about how to increase the impact. And now I would like to hand it over to Noelia and to engage with the questions from the audience. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you, Petar, and thank you to you all, panelists, for such interesting insights. We have lots of questions. We don't have enough time, possibly, to answer all of them. We will try to answer as many as possible. And the ones that are left will be answered in our company page in LinkedIn, so stay tuned. So the first question is, how do you all see generative artificial intelligence making us more precise and impactful in our jobs as value advisors? So, Frank, would you like to get started?
Yeah, we'd be pleased to do so. And you probably know that we don't have ChatGPT at Google. We have something equivalent, and I've been completely blown up by how it helped me on a daily basis to get rid of all the crappy stuff that is sometimes really taking me a lot of time, gathering information about an industry that I don't know that well, about the key trends, gathering some financial information on specific companies. It's amazing the level of precision these tools might have. And so for me, it's a time saver, so that I can really focus on what, as a human, I can really impact, which is being creative, reacting to situations that were not expected, and working on the opportunity and the account strategy, rather than spending my time in collecting data and structuring this data. And these tools are useful in all the fields, including in design thinking. I can give you a rapid example. I was discussing with an engineer who provided me with 25 use cases for specific customers. And I went to the large language model, which is called BARD in our organization, and asked it to translate it for me into personal-like scenarios. It did it in like 30 seconds. And I just reused that after a few corrections with the customer right away. So this type of things would have taken really something like 1 hour to 2 hours of work from my side, but that was not really adding value. That's where GenAI can help us right now.
Yeah. And Ogne, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I follow up on Frank that definitely, I mean, I see a world where, yes, everybody will have access to the latest research and the latest creation, even of a, great slide that everybody can reuse, rather than, having to generate it themselves. Just give them the right prompts, and then these are the right trends, or these are the 3 scenarios. How can you solve the problem? But I'm at the same time, it's also about, how can you leverage embedded AI in the services that we can offer. So I can maybe even, by tracking the usage of the tool, indicate underused maybe elements of the solution, and prompt a potential solution to even to the customer. And if the translation of the a solution to the problem is not easily explained by the machine, then can you loop the value engineer or the customer success manager to actually follow up on that? And we also see maybe in the nearer term also something like that happening, that there's an embedded AI that just comes directs recommendations from the usage, tracking the movements, etc., and then prompting suggested actions out of there with or without a human intervention. So watch this space. I think this is going to be extremely exciting.
Great, thank you. Fabrizio, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just an anecdote, and it's literally 30 seconds. So Ogden, I was asked, and I was in front of the press, in front of a journalist, to present the embedded AI into Workday. And I had to give a pitch, and I was starting to create my story. Back to Frank's point, I didn't have much time, and I used an artificial intelligence tool to request, can you give me stats on artificial intelligence in the software industry? And in 3 seconds, I got 6 quotes from BCG, McKinsey, IBM, and everything with the right number that was perfect for my story. It could have taken me days to find all these stats. In 3 seconds, I got everything ready. I had to double check if it was true, and I had to double check and build my story, but it's definitely an efficiency tool, and definitely we see just the tip of the iceberg, because in the future, when it will be embodied, we don't even know that it's artificial intelligence, but we will see just the outcome, the use case packaged in our software.
Brilliant, thank you. Mark, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just a couple of points. So one is that I was at the Knowledge 23 event, it's a ServiceNow event a few weeks back in Vegas, and they were demoing the use of our generative AI tools for developers. So there's different applications of AI, right? And I was totally blown away by the demo where a developer configuring the platform, predictably, the next piece of the solution was being built in front of our eyes. And I just thought, wow, from a value management perspective, I'm not sure we're that far away, how many years away we are from when the software kind of reconfigures itself, depending on the value direction. So I was super excited about that. And our tools are incredibly powerful, but we also partner with others. Bill McDermott, our CEO, was on stage with Jensen Huang from NVIDIA, and they were talking about collaboration. So I think it's going to be huge over the next few years. I think for us doing our job, as Frank and Fabrizio said, you can put it into a tool and you'll be amazed, I think, if you haven't tried, how quickly a pretty strong story comes together. And it gives you a glimpse of the future where you think how much time we spend in the field, us as practitioners, gathering data, checking data, to be able to have a tool that goes off and pulls that together so quickly. And it's just the starting point today. And the regulators will have a lot to say over the next few years. So how we use those tools will be predefined by regulation and all sorts of governing bodies. But I remember sitting in Vegas watching this demo thinking, wow, if this is a glimpse of the future, it's coming pretty fast. It's pretty amazing. Our tools that we were using were phenomenal. And actually, if I applied it to the value management world, there's a lot of change coming fast, and it's all good change.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant, thank you. So we have another question. So Chris, you mentioned the need to produce value evidence, and Shida also touched upon this from a different perspective. And we have this question in many cases when someone is just starting a practice and they have absolutely nothing. So the question is, can you provide examples of acceptable evidence?
Yeah, okay, sure. No, I'm happy to answer that. And just maybe before we go to that, on the AI point and ChatGPT and those things, to me, they're kind of a tool for when you haven't got a tool. And they're consolidating what they can find out there in the ether into something that's usable in the context that you're asking for it. And that's really, really powerful, and I get that. But when I think about it in the context of fake news and the veracity of the information that's out there, I think we also need to take it with a grain of salt. So make sure it's validated, make sure we're comfortable that what it's giving us really does meet the need and we can produce evidence to support it. So that's what I would say on that point. But in terms of producing evidence, then maybe I'll just quickly paint a scenario. The business that I'm in, business spend management, which is a new domain, a bit like sales and customer management or business process. Business spend management is managing the process broadly in procurement and finance of the stuff that companies need to buy. Just understand it like that. Then you think of it as you raise a requisition, a PO gets, that gets authorized, a PO gets generated, and it goes through, products delivered, there's an invoice, there's a payment, da-di-da-di-da. We know from that big set of data that I was talking about earlier that if a PO is raised against a contract, then on average, there's close to 10% saving on the price. So there's a data point. I can look at a customer's data then and say, for all of your purchase orders, how many of them were against a contract? If they're not against a contract, you've potentially left 10% on the table. And I can prove that to you because out of in excess of 2,000 customers and $4 trillion worth of spend in our database, we know that's a statistic that's, it's statistically sound. That KPI is statistically sound. So the opportunity for you then is to use the process and the technology that we provide to establish agreed terms and conditions around the stuff that you buy so that you can save that 10%. That's an example of evidence. And then baked into the system is every time you go to buy something, is this a pre-agreed terms and conditions? Is it on contract? If not, then choose this other customer, this other supplier for it. And when it goes through the rest of the process, so purchase order, delivery of product, GRN, invoice, payment, we're validating that all the way through. And if the invoice doesn't match purchase order, that's another data point. That supplier isn't as reliable as someone whose invoices are always correct. So we downmark them on the risk score. And next time someone purchases against that supplier, they see there's a risk flag here. So we're dealing with risk, we're dealing with ESG, we're dealing with all of those soft factors that sit around this process because we've got AI actually baked right into the solution that's analyzing this big data set and surfacing these key metrics as we go through. And that then makes it much easier for people to make the right decisions in the business, reduces risk, and actually reduces friction for people. And that drives adoption. So we can then get on to the whole conversation about realization. We're surfacing the data that proves that the outcomes are being realized in real time. And then, why do we want to do realization? From a selfish point of view, is to support radiation and renewal. When it comes to contract discussion, contract renewal discussion, hey, we can show you, you've gone from 60% spend on contract to 90% spend on contract. You're now in our top 25%. You've got a whole load of benefit. In fact, we've quantified it for you. Here's the number. That's what I mean about evidence. And that's the way we're approaching it. And every single data point from a KPI point of view that we're producing is backed by this deep analysis of this big data set that we've got. Brilliant. Long answer to a simple question, so I apologize. But
no, thank you. Thank you. Sheila, do you want to add what happens when we have anything? You have.
Yeah, so, it's fascinating what Chris mentioned, and I cannot agree more. The company that I'm at, Certinia, we do professional services automation. And if you think about it, you win an opportunity, you find the people to do a project, you execute the project, you bill an invoice against the project, you recognize revenue and so on. And across this journey, there are multiple stakeholders, right? And so a slightly different lens to evidence is evidence based on what that stakeholder cares about, right? If it is a day in the life of a person who is in a project and executing against a project, it's about efficiencies, right? How can I make my life much more efficient and get the time back rather than spending time on manual disjointed work? If it is a project manager, it's about managing my project margins. If it's about a services leader, it's about how do I ensure all my people are utilized in the right way? And how am I contributing to the overall margins of the business? So when we collect evidence out here, it's evidence that is persona-based, that is role-based, right? And that's relevant to all the stakeholders in that sales cycle or post-sales cycle.
Brilliant. Thank you. Just changing topics, if it's okay. There's a question about diversity. Because Chris, you touched upon diversity, and the question is, what are you doing to boost diversity, and in which ways you are benefiting from a diverse team? So who would like to get started? Fabrizio?
Sure, love it. I think it's close to my heart. Is a great topic. I was also for 2 years part of the Vibe Council in EMEA. So diversity is a way to challenge ourselves. Diversity is a way to see one topic differently, and that's the only way to grow as a team. Otherwise, we stay always in our comfort zone. So that's why you see many stats, and you can search on ChatGPT stats. But at the end of the day, what is important is that we grow and we see differently the same thing, and that will create different view, and that will create expansion of your knowledge. And expansion of your knowledge is your future, is the career, is the interpretation, is the way you bring your contribution to an organization. So how we can arrive to that final objective? We need to take different type of diversity. Why we focus on gender diversity? Because it's the easiest way to build different other diversities. But it's not just that. I think there are diversity in the background, diversity in the way you feel, diversity in the age, and there are so many diversity that you can add that somehow collect a piece of the puzzle that will start to challenge every day maybe one concept that was already consolidated in the way you operate. So I love that. I think gender diversity is definitely the easiest way to go, and it's the way to go in Europe, but we can also build on different dimensions of this topic.
Brilliant, thank you. Ognan, do you want to add something?
Exactly, I'll just build up on the last comment of Fabrizio. Yes, gender diversity, extremely important. And today we are guilty of obviously having a underrepresentation. At the same time, diversity of ideas, diversity of opportunity, diversity of backgrounds. I mean, almost everyone here is coming from a different country when they were originally born, or has a different accent. Also diversity of age, of backgrounds, as we heard, even capabilities and others. And these are all elements. I mean, in the end, I will not assume that the brain is the only thing that matters. It's also the empathy you show and approaching the customer, and actually being a little bit like your customer. And our customers are extremely diverse. So it is an important topic, but it requires more than one lens to look at it. And we should just do more of it. That's the easiest I can summarize. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, just very quickly, I think there's some obvious things to say, like we need to reflect our customers. So our customers are diverse, so we need to be. The other one is for those of you who, many of you with me, by the way, introduced design thinking ideas many years ago into our practices. The science of diverse thinking, there's a lot of evidence that you need that diversity of thinking, and that comes from people with diverse backgrounds. So there is a real science to making sure that you get a really healthy mix of people on any project. And it's not just a kind of headline. It genuinely, there's some science behind the quality and the impact of the work that's produced by a team that's more diverse, which I think is just worth remembering.
Yeah, just a quick comment from my side, because obviously you don't get these kind of messages in LinkedIn, but when I reach out to other professional women, many of them answer back to me saying, thank you for reaching out. So happy that more and more women are in this area, because we tend to be now a minority. So it's just something for you to be aware of, that there's some kind of force building up, at least in LinkedIn. So just in terms of diversity, something to note. Frank, do you want to say something?
Yes, and not on this gender diversity. As it's true that women are a minority. Even in our team, we are constantly facing difficulties to find the right profiles to balance this a little bit. I would like to come back to the profile diversity. And I don't know if Mark will remember this experience we had together when he was managing my manager at that time at SAP. We always hired typical management consulting or strategic consulting profiles. And for different reasons, on one head count, we didn't have this luxury, and we had to hire somebody who was really not on top of our list, with no consulting background and more like a sales background. And he had a very different approach than the kind of standardized way we, the others, will approach opportunities and sales team. Eventually, he was the one who delivered the biggest deal ever signed in the market unit for 25 years. And that's because he had a different approach. He had a different relationship with the sales team, a different relationship with the customer as well. So sometimes we need to be bold and take our chance to hire people, as I think Chris mentioned, he is doing it. Well done. Sometimes it's really pay off.
Brilliant, thank you. Fabrizio, you want to add something?
Just literally 30 seconds. Noelia, I hear you. And I think gender diversity for me is the number one step, is the easiest, because if we are back there, we are back everywhere else. And then many times I heard diversity is important, but the how is missing. So I want to just give the audience one idea on the how. When we hire, many times we think about diversity at the last step. We have maybe 3 people. One of them is a woman, the other 2 are men, and that we need to force ourselves. We need to select the woman. No, that's wrong. You select the best person for the role. What you need to act is when you build your network and build the highest funnel of your pipeline of talents. That's where you approach someone externally, and that's where you need to think diversity, so that your funnel is 80% women and 20% men. And then at the end of the day, you have a panel, the last step, with 3 women, and that becomes diversity. So I think if you apply that in your recruitment process, you will see that at the end of the day, you change the dynamic of your team.
Brilliant, thank you. So one more question. What do you think are the main customer fears in a buying process that value engineering can help overcome? So Sheila, could you like to get us started?
Yes, of course. So I'll give a slightly different slant out here. When we say fears, there's a lot of emotion tied to that, right? And so when I think of value, there are 2 aspects of value. One is the business value, right? All those benefits that you stand to gain, right? Both from an outcomes perspective and, across all those stakeholders that we mentioned upfront. But let's never forget personal value, right? There's personal value that's relevant for each stakeholder. What does it matter for them? Is a successful project going to make them look good in the eyes of higher management? Is a successful project going to de-risk failure? Is a successful project going to mean they're going to be happy, sleep well, peacefully? All of that personal emotion and baggage that's tied to it. A successful value approach should always take into account both business value as well as personal value to help them allay some of those fears and concerns.
Brilliant, thank you. Chris, would you like to add something?
Yeah. So maybe just I'll segue back to diversity for just a second, if I may, and tell you a kind of personal story. So I have an adopted daughter who's Black, and her life has been challenging, it's fair to say. And when she first came to us, she was struggling. A few years later, she was representing the UK in Rio at the Olympics. So never underestimate what you can get from people who are different to you. And really, that's what diversity is about. It's about recognizing that everyone is different. Even the few of us on this panel, we are different. We bring different points of view. So make sure you give people space to build on those differences. That's my suggestion for diversity. Looking at the other, sorry, remind me of the question, please, Noel.
Oh, sorry. Lost. Yeah. What do you think are the main fears in a buying process?
Yeah. So to me, having been around and led transformation programs across many years in my career, the risk associated with not making a decision is usually significantly less in the eyes of a buyer than the risk of making a decision. So actually, what we're trying to prove is that making the right decision is low risk. And that then means understanding what is the psychological risk for someone around a decision, and how do we cover off the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that they've built up around making this decision. And there's an element of that that's driven by evidence. You know, show them the proof, show them the money, show them that we've thought about all of the risk factors and all the rest of it. But there's another element of it, which is actually, I've done this before. I've got a load of experience dealing with the sorts of things that I know you're going to have to deal with, and I'm there for you. I'm your friend in this process. I'm able to help you through it. And as an organization, myself, my leadership, and my team, we're there for you through this. And the results are going to be worth it. So I think to what Shreya was saying, it's about understanding the personal, what's this person got in it personally and individually, and how do we help them with that? It's a very personal thing. It's my view.
Brilliant. Thank you. Ogne, would you like to add something?
Well, I'm actually just reflecting on a question in the panel from Carmine Mancusi. Hi, Carmine, long time. Which is a little bit related to this. So, what would be advice to drive a business value mindset within a customer organization? So, I do see actually a change. It's a recent change in the last maybe 6 to 9 months, where customers are really, the representative, the program owners, are actually being almost rewarded for realizing the value rather than delivering on time and on money. And actually their bonuses are tied to that. And it's an interesting phenomenon, even in public sector, where you would never expect this. It's happening, it's beginning to happen. So it's, I guess, to come back to for many decision makers, the one fear is, am I putting my career on the line here? Yeah. So I guess that the question back is, can you actually use this as the jump board for your next career move internally or even externally? So, can you be the champion? So, it's really, I see a change in the customer behavior on that. And, they're putting also their money where their mouth is for these kind of things.
Thank you.
I answered it live.
Thank you. Fabrizio and you, Ognen, actually touched upon this about aligning sales with value management. And we have a question about around this topic. In a high value enterprise SaaS sales motion, ideally, at what sales stage should the value engineers engage? If it's too early, it hampers the scale. Too late, reduces the total impact. So what is your view, Fabrizio?
Oh, thank you for the easy question. I think we have been puzzling around this question for the last 20 years, I guess. Let me maybe make one step back and saying sales, and also it's related to the value realization. I want to leave you with a question. I don't have an answer. What is more important for the organization? Is the customer satisfaction or is the sales budget? And I think that gives you also the perspective about where to invest value or how to balance value between value discovery and value realization. Back to where we can be engaged. I can give you the ideal word, the optimal, and the optimal is early stages. We can influence. We need to start to win the heart of our prospect and customer. We need to see the idea of a transformation. We can be there helping them to allocate the budget for the following year. We can start to organize and align the IT transformation with the processes, with the organizational setup, and then maybe fine-tuning or aligning with the strategy. That's a lot of work, and that's all the work that is required to get the green light from the board of directors to then start a project with these type of dimensions. But we have limited resources.
Yeah.
So with that, I think that's a big question. Where to focus, how to approach a deal. Every deal is talking about diversity, is diverse. Every opportunity is diverse. So we have the ideal word, and then we need to double check with the reality. And for me, the key point is scale. If we are capable, and I think few of them, I remember Frank, Sridhar, Mark, if we are capable to make value approach in the DNA of our company, that probably doesn't matter too much where we enter as a value manager. Then is the company thinking value selling. So whoever is interacting with our prospect and customer, that will think about business use case, strategy, impact to the business, and so on and so forth, influencing, challenging, creating a relationship. That would be my ideal answer, probably. And the how to arrive there could be through enablement, could be through the pyramid, different model if you are on the top of the pyramid or the bottom of the pyramid. And I think we know that this is a word that we probably cannot summarize in 3 minutes.
Brilliant, thank you. Mark, do you want to add something?
Yeah, just very quickly building on Fabrizio's point, as leaders, as many of you are attending the call today, I've always said that a big piece of what we do is an exercise in change management. So that's, how much can you drive the value DNA through your organization? So it's about us helping customers extract value from the tools and services that we deliver from our organizations, but also our role in our organizations to drive that change agenda. So I always like to, I'm conscious we're running out of time, to end on that note, which I'm very positive for the future. And I think the success and the traction we get in our organizations is partly dependent on how well we drive that change agenda. And I think the belief we all have on the call here is around, the value that we can bring to our customers. And therefore, that kind of change management aspect, driving the change through the organization to get exponential value, is so important.
Brilliant, thank you. Frank wanted to add something on generative AI, so please, Frank, go ahead. You are muted, though. You are muted, so please unmute yourself. We cannot hear you.
Sorry about that. And it's actually continuing the thinking that Mark just mentioned. The Gen AI we mentioned earlier is the generic one, the one like ChatGPT and Bard that are available for everybody. No, you need to know that we, and probably Microsoft as well, are solutions to specialize this model just for your own company. So the next step, and it's not going to happen in months, it's in a few days or weeks, is to feed a specialized version of this large language model with every value proposition you have made so far. And then all of a sudden you have a kind of a value engineer assistant that can help scaling, but that also give us the imperative to really focus on where we as humans make a difference. And that's about change management. That's about relationship storytelling, influencing, as it has been said by many today. So that's what I wanted to add.
Well, thank you, Frank. So this was our last question. We have run out of time. We would love to continue this amazing conversation. If you wish, you can continue in the LinkedIn group we have created. It's called Professional Value Management in ICT. This is company agnostic, and it aims to bring collaboration between value managers and sales leaders who want to share ideas. Regarding our next roundtable, we aim to host this kind of event 3 to 4 times a year, and we will be polling for next topics because we are interested in knowing what the audience wants to learn about. And finally, I would like to thank you all, our panelists and our moderators, for their contribution, and all the amazing audience for finding the time to be here. Lastly, a special thank you to Teresa Catala and Charlotte Eyre, who have been working endlessly to make this roundtable happen. So if you would like to take part in similar discussions, follow our LinkedIn company page and join our group. Thank you all for joining, and see you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, I think that we are now out of the transmission, no? We can talk freely in Zoom.
Hopefully, it's good if we can debrief a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.